Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, I'm about to share with you a story that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and trust. Imagine this: what if the very person you raised, cared for, and gave everything to turned their back on you the moment they thought you were broke? And what if, just 3 days later, your entire fortune returned, but by then it was too late? This isn't just a story about money. It's about betrayal, heartbreak, and the painful truth of human nature. Today, we're diving into the story of Amanda, a woman in her 60s who gave her adopted daughter the world, only to discover that love, sometimes, is nothing more than a transaction for some people. But what happened when Amanda's fortune came back overnight? And how did she choose to respond? Trust me, you won't see this ending coming. So, grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let me tell you the story of the adopted daughter who walked away, thinking I was broke, until my fortune returned. Amanda sat quietly in the living room, staring at the papers in front of her. The legal dispute with her company had just come to a head, and within hours, all her assets were frozen. It was an unexpected blow, one that left her feeling helpless, as if everything she had worked for her entire life had been ripped away. Just as she was trying to wrap her head around it, the doorbell rang. Lena, her adopted daughter, burst through the door with her usual energy, but today, something about her seemed different, distant, impatient. Without so much as a greeting, Lena went straight to the point. "I want the villa," she said, her voice expectant. "You know, the $2 million one. New Year's gift, right? I know you can afford it." Amanda looked up from the papers, her heart sinking. It wasn't just about the money. It was about how Lena thought of her. She took a deep breath before speaking, trying to keep her voice steady. "Lena, I can't buy you that villa right now," Amanda explained, her tone gentle but firm. "There's a legal issue with the company. All of my assets are frozen temporarily. It's a tough situation, but it'll be sorted out in a few days. Please understand, I just can't make any big purchases until everything is cleared up." For a moment, Lena just stared at her, disbelief in her eyes. Then, as if everything changed in an instant, her face twisted with anger. The calm, calculating girl Amanda had raised seemed to vanish, replaced by something much colder. "You think I'm an idiot, don't you?" Lena hissed, her voice sharp with disdain. "What kind of situation leads to your assets being frozen? You're broke, aren't you? I knew it. I always knew you were full of lies." Without warning, Lena grabbed a glass off the table and threw it against the wall. The sound of glass shattering echoed through the room. Amanda flinched, her breath catching in her chest as the shards scattered across the floor. But it was the words that hurt the most. Lena's face twisted with contempt as she spat out her accusations. "You really thought I didn't know? I knew you couldn't be trusted. Always showing off with a little bit of money, pretending to be something you're not." Lena's fury seemed to have no end, and Amanda's heart sank further. Before she could respond, Lena pulled something from her bag, an envelope. With a flick of her wrist, she threw it down on the table in front of Amanda. "Here," she sneered. "You've been nothing but a disappointment. I'm done with you. You're not my mother anymore. This is the termination of adoption agreement. Sign it, and I'll be out of your life for good." Amanda's world seemed to stop for a moment as she stared at the paper. Her hands trembled as she reached for it, but she didn't pick it up. She couldn't. Lena's words were harsh, but Amanda knew deep down this wasn't just about money. It was about something deeper. She could see the calculation in Lena's eyes, the way she'd always treated their relationship like a transaction. And now, when Amanda had nothing left to give, Lena was done. But Amanda stayed silent. She knew the truth. Her assets would be unfrozen in just 3 days, and Lena had no idea. The words that Amanda wanted to say, the anger, the hurt, they all caught in her throat. She looked at Lena, a final moment of silence passing between them. "Just leave," Amanda finally said, her voice barely a whisper. Lena stood there, staring at her for a moment, before she turned and stormed out of the house. Amanda let her go without another word. She would not chase after her. But deep down, She knew that this would be the last time Lena would walk out of her life. 3 years ago, Amanda found herself at a crossroads in her life. A successful businesswoman in Los Angeles, she had spent most of her adult years focused on her career, never really considering the idea of having children. But something about a foster outreach program she volunteered for caught her attention, and that's when she met Lena. Lena was unlike any teenager Amanda had ever encountered. A girl with a sharp edge, a guard built around her heart, and eyes that seemed to carry a lifetime of pain. Her past was a broken tapestry of neglect, foster homes, and a mother who had been arrested on drug charges, leaving Lena to fend for herself. There were no grandparents, no distant relatives, no one left to care for her. She had no family, just the cold, distant hands of the state that had placed her into temporary care. Amanda wasn't prepared for the weight of it when she first met Lena. The girl was quiet, standing in the corner of the classroom during the orientation session, clutching a nearly empty sticky notepad. There was a weariness to her that wasn't typical for someone so young. Amanda, instinctively drawn to her, walked over to the girl and asked, "What do you need?" Without even looking up, Lena's soft voice replied, "I just want a place where I can sleep in peace." In that moment, Amanda's heart broke. She saw the exhaustion in Lena's eyes, the quiet resignation of someone who had given up on family long ago. But there was something else there too, a flicker of resilience, an unwillingness to break completely. Amanda knew, without a doubt, that this was a girl who needed someone to believe in her. The path to adoption wasn't easy. Amanda had to go through a maze of paperwork, interviews, and background checks. But every step she took felt worth it. Lena needed a home, and Amanda was determined to give her one. When Lena moved into Amanda's home, it wasn't easy at first. The walls Lena had built around herself were high, and she didn't trust easily. For months, Lena would say things like, "I won't be here long. You'll get tired of me eventually." Amanda never pushed. She simply kept showing up, offering Lena stability, comfort, and a safe place to sleep. Amanda decorated Lena's room with care, paying attention to every detail. She enrolled her in school, making sure she had everything she needed, from clothes to books, to the kind of nurturing that every child deserves. Slowly, the walls started to crumble. One evening, after a quiet family dinner, just the two of them, Lena caught Amanda off guard. As they cleared the dishes together, Lena softly spoke the words Amanda had never expected to hear. "Mom." It was simple. It was quiet. But it was everything. That one word pierced Amanda's heart in a way she couldn't have imagined. It wasn't just a label. It was the bridge to a relationship that Amanda had never thought possible. Over the next few years, their bond grew stronger. Amanda believed she had built something real, something unbreakable. She had given Lena everything: a family, a home, a future. And in return, Lena had slowly given her heart back, piece by piece. But Amanda had no idea that the love she had poured into Lena would one day be questioned, shattered by something as fragile as money. She had trusted that the love between them was enough to weather any storm. Little did she know, the greatest storm was yet to come. The present day was nothing like the peaceful routine Amanda had hoped for. She had barely gotten used to the quiet of her home when Lena came storming in one afternoon, a look of concern on her face. Amanda had learned over the years to expect the unexpected from her adopted daughter. But today, something felt off. Lena had always been the type to wear her emotions like a mask, but today, her mask seemed more fragile than usual. "Mom, you're home early," Lena said, almost too casually, as she stepped into the living room. Amanda gave a soft smile, trying to ignore the unease creeping into her chest. "Yeah, I've been working non-stop lately. It's good to finally have some time to relax." Lena nodded, her eyes flicking nervously to the table where Amanda had been sorting through some papers. She hesitated for a moment before reaching into her bag and pulling out her phone, casually scrolling through it before showing Amanda the screen. "I found something for you," Lena said, her voice almost too sweet. "Look at this luxury villa by the lake. I think it would be perfect for us. For me, really. It's an amazing place. $2 million, prime location, amazing view. I mean, it's just the perfect gift, right?" Amanda blinked, taken aback by the suggestion. She had expected something else. Perhaps a request for a new dress, maybe even a vacation, but this was different. It was bold, presumptuous even. She hadn't expected Lena to make such a request, especially not now, when everything was still up in the air with the company. "No, Lena," Amanda said softly but firmly, shaking her head. "I can't buy that villa right now. There's a lot going on with my company, and I'm not in the position to make that kind of purchase. Maybe later, but not right now." Lena's smile faltered, her gaze shifting uncomfortably. "But Mom, I've already told all my friends I'd take them to see it. They're expecting it." Amanda's eyes narrowed. The tone in Lena's voice was wrong. There was something insistent about it, like she wasn't just asking for a gift, but demanding it. It wasn't the first time Amanda had noticed Lena's growing sense of entitlement, but today, it felt heavier than usual. "Lena," Amanda said, standing up and walking toward her, her voice calm but with a sharp edge. "Is this house really for you? Or is it for your father?" For a moment, Lena froze, her face going pale as if she had been caught off guard. But the expression quickly turned into one of defiance. She crossed her arms, looking down at the floor, her voice dropping to a whisper. "It's for him," Lena admitted, her eyes not meeting Amanda's. "I already gave the villa to my father. And the Bentley too." Amanda felt her heart sink as the words hit her. The shock of it was enough to take her breath away. Lena, her daughter, the one she had raised as her own, had already made decisions about Amanda's assets without so much as a word to her. The villa wasn't a gift for Amanda after all. It was a way for Lena to flaunt her new life to her friends, while using Amanda's wealth to show off to her father. "Lena, how could you?" Amanda's voice cracked slightly, a mix of disbelief and anger. "I trusted you. I gave you everything. And now you've taken what was mine, what I worked for, and gave it to him." Lena's defiant expression wavered, and Amanda could see the guilt begin to creep into her eyes. But it wasn't enough to undo the damage. It wasn't enough to repair the deep fracture that had just formed between them. "I didn't mean to upset you, Mom," Lena said, her voice trembling slightly. I thought it would make everything better. I thought you'd be okay with it." Amanda stared at her, the betrayal cutting deeper than she had ever imagined. She had always known Lena could be calculating at times, but this was different. Lena had crossed a line, one that Amanda didn't think she would ever cross. "You've made your choice, Lena," Amanda said, her voice cold. "You've chosen money over family, just like him. Don't come to me now with empty excuses." Lena flinched, but Amanda wasn't finished. She had given everything to this girl, poured love and trust into her, and yet here she was, standing in front of her, having taken it all for granted. "I'll never understand you, Lena," Amanda whispered, her heart heavy. "But I hope one day you'll realize what you've lost." With that, Lena stood there, her face flushed with guilt and frustration, unsure of what to say. Amanda turned away, her heart breaking as she walked toward the other room, leaving Lena standing alone in the silence of her own choices. Amanda stood in the living room, feeling like the walls were closing in around her. The conversation with Lena had taken an unexpected turn, and the weight of the betrayal was suffocating. She had been patient, understanding, and loving. But this was too much. Lena, her adopted daughter, had just confessed that she had given away Amanda's $2 million villa and Bentley to her biological father, Rick. The man who had abandoned her years ago, the one whose criminal history Amanda had worked so hard to shield Lena from. Amanda had known about Rick's past, a history filled with theft and dishonesty, but she had kept it hidden from Lena. She didn't want to shatter the fragile bond they had built together. But now, standing before her, Lena's actions were forcing Amanda to confront the ugly truth that had been lurking in the shadows for years. "I knew, you know," Amanda said, her voice steady but carrying the weight of years of silence. She turned to face Lena, her gaze unwavering. "I knew your father was a thief. He stole from people, including from me. And I kept quiet about it, protected you from the truth. I thought you deserved better than that." I thought I could give you a chance to grow up without the shadows of your past hanging over you." Lena froze, her expression shifting from defiance to shock. "You knew," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yes," Amanda continued, her voice low and cutting through the tension in the room. "I knew. And I chose to forgive him to protect you from his mistakes. But what you've done now, Lena, giving away what I worked so hard for, taking what was mine without even a second thought, it changes everything." Lena's face reddened, her emotions shifting from shock to anger. "How could you do this to me?" she snapped, her voice rising. "You act like I owe you something. I've been patient. I've put up with your rules, your limits, your endless lectures. You're so selfish, Amanda. You have everything, and you can't spare a little for me and my father." Amanda stared at her, disbelief flooding her chest. Lena was no longer the child she had raised. The girl who once called her mom was now demanding money, using the title of daughter to manipulate her into giving more. And in that moment, Amanda finally saw the truth. "Lena," Amanda said, her voice breaking with the weight of reality, "this isn't about money. Never was. You don't want a family. You never did. You wanted security, comfort, the lifestyle you thought you were entitled to. Your love, your affection, it was always conditional. It was always about what I could give you, what I could provide." Lena's face contorted with rage. "You think I don't care about you? You think I only want your money?" she screamed. "You have everything, and you can't share a little of it with me and my father? You're so greedy, Amanda. You only think about yourself." Amanda's heart shattered as she realized the depth of Lena's true nature. The girl she had raised, the one she had loved and cared for as her own, had never seen her as a mother. She had only seen her as a means to an end. The love Lena had offered was never genuine. It was a transaction, a way to secure the life she thought she deserved. Tears filled Amanda's eyes, but she wiped them away quickly. This wasn't the daughter she had hoped for. This wasn't the bond she had worked so hard to create. "I'm not selfish, Lena," Amanda said quietly, her voice cold and steady now. "I've given you everything I could. I've sacrificed more than you'll ever know. But what you've done today, what you've taken from me, proves that you were never interested in family. You just wanted everything I could give you. Well, now you've taken it all, and there's nothing left." Lena stood there, her anger simmering, but Amanda wasn't finished. The realization that Lena's love had always been transactional was like a final, bitter pill to swallow. "I hope you understand," Amanda said, her voice quiet but firm. "You've chosen the life you want. And now so have I." The silence in the room was deafening as Lena placed the termination of adoption agreement on the table in front of Amanda. It was as if the very paper before her symbolized the end of everything she had worked for, everything she had believed in. The woman she had raised as her own, the daughter she had once called Mom, was now demanding that she sign away their bond. "Sign it, Mom," Lena said with a cold, almost bored tone, as if this was just another piece of paperwork to her. "You know it's over. Just do it and let's move on." Amanda stared at the document, her hands trembling. She wanted to scream, to fight, to lash out at Lena for everything she had done, for the lies, the manipulation, the sheer audacity of it all. But something inside her told her that it was already too late. Lena had made her choice, and there was nothing Amanda could do to undo the damage. Lena stood there, watching her expectantly, her arms crossed as she waited for Amanda to comply. There was no guilt in her eyes, no regret. In fact, there was something almost smug about her demeanor, as if she had won some sort of victory. With a heavy heart, Amanda picked up the pen. It felt like an impossible weight in her hand, as if signing it would be an admission of defeat. But she signed anyway, her signature a quiet surrender to the truth she had been avoiding for so long. Lena didn't even look at her as she grabbed the paper, satisfied. "Thanks, Mom," she said with an almost mocking smile before turning to leave. But before she walked out of the door, Lena did something that Amanda would never forget. She began collecting things, little trinkets, valuable items scattered around the house, things that once had meaning, things Amanda had carefully placed in her home with love. Lena stuffed them into a bag, as though everything she had ever given her was simply a commodity to be taken. Amanda's heart felt like it was being ripped out of her chest as she watched Lena, her daughter, turn everything Amanda had worked for into something to be claimed. It was all so cold, so calculated. What had she done wrong? Had Lena never truly cared for her? Had their entire relationship been built on the shaky foundation of money and material things? As Lena walked out the door, not a word of farewell, not a single look of remorse, Amanda was left standing in the wreckage of her own home. The empty space around her felt like it was closing in, the walls pressing down on her as she realized the truth. The bond she thought she had with Lena was nothing but an illusion. Everything she had built, every moment she had cherished, was tied to something so fragile: money. The house felt colder now, emptier. Amanda sank into a chair, the weight of the loss crashing down on her. She had lost her daughter, the one person she thought she could count on, the person she had loved unconditionally. And for what? Villa, a Bentley, a life that Lena had demanded, using the relationship between them as leverage. Amanda knew that in 3 days, her assets would be unfrozen. The financial burden that had caused this whole mess would be lifted. But the truth was, it didn't matter anymore. The damage was done. She had given everything to Lena, and in the end, it hadn't been enough. She sat alone in the cold, empty silence of her house, the weight of the betrayal heavy on her heart. 3 days. That's all it would take to restore everything she had lost financially. But what about the love? What about the family? It was gone, swept away in the blink of an eye, leaving her with nothing but the shattered remnants of a relationship that had never been real. Amanda closed her eyes, trying to hold back the tears, but the pain was overwhelming. She had built a life for Lena, a future. And now, as she sat in the stillness, she realized that everything she had worked for was just an illusion. At this point, it's hard not to feel conflicted, isn't it? On one hand, you can't help but feel Amanda's heartbreak and frustration. She's given everything to her daughter, only to be betrayed when she's at her lowest. But on the other hand, is Lena really remorseful? Or is she just afraid of losing the comfort she thought she had? I'd love to hear what you think about this situation. What would you have done if you were Amanda? Would you have forgiven Lena? Or is it too late for a second chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm really curious to see how you feel about this one. 3 days passed, and the weight of Lena's betrayal still hung heavy on Amanda's heart. The days were filled with quiet reflection, the cold silence of her empty home pressing in on her. She had tried to move on, tried to accept the reality of what had happened, but nothing could numb the pain of losing someone she had loved like a daughter. But now it was time to face Lena one last time. The morning of the court hearing, Lena was already outside the courthouse, pacing back and forth with impatience. Her expression was one of smug satisfaction, as though she had already won, already secured her place in the life she believed she was entitled to. The termination of the adoption was just a formality now, and soon she would be free of Amanda for good. Amanda, however, was taking her time. She wasn't in a rush. She had nothing to prove, and the last thing she wanted was to play by Lena's rules. As the clock ticked, Lena grew more and more anxious, watching the door of the courthouse with growing frustration. She was ready to finish this, ready to claim her victory. Finally, the tall, elegant figure of Amanda appeared in the doorway. Composed, her expression unreadable, but there was an undeniable air of authority about her. The same authority that had once commanded boardrooms, but now, it seemed, was the only thing left in her arsenal. She wasn't the same woman who had eagerly embraced Lena into her home all those years ago. No, Amanda had changed. She had become someone far stronger, someone who would no longer let herself be manipulated. Lena's eyes flashed with annoyance as Amanda approached, but she held her tongue. This wasn't the time for confrontation, or so she thought. Amanda stood silently, waiting as the paperwork was finalized. Her posture relaxed but her gaze sharp, cutting through the tension in the air. Once the documents were signed, once everything was settled, Amanda leaned in slightly, her voice low but unmistakable. "You can betray relationships, Lena," she said coldly, her eyes locking onto her adopted daughters. "But don't you dare humiliate me. You don't get to do that." For a moment Lena stood there, stunned. She had expected this moment to be her victory, but Amanda's calm demeanor, her lack of desperation, sent a chill through her. She had hoped to see Amanda broken, crushed beneath the weight of her betrayal, but instead she was staring at a woman who was beyond her reach, untouchable. Without another word, Amanda turned to leave, her heels clicking sharply against the courthouse floor. Lena stood frozen, watching her, unsure of what to make of it all. And then, as Amanda reached the door, she paused, glanced back over her shoulder with a smile that was barely perceptible, a smile that held no warmth, only the coolness of someone who had been wronged and was now in control. "Oh, by the way," Amanda said casually, as if she were commenting on something insignificant, "my assets were unfrozen this morning." The words hit Lena like a slap across the face. Her eyes widened, disbelief flooding her expression. She had assumed Amanda was on the brink of financial ruin, but now here was Amanda, more powerful, more confident, and in complete control. Lena stood there, stunned, unable to speak. The final blow had been delivered, and Amanda had walked away, leaving Lena in the dust of her own arrogance. As Amanda stepped out of the courthouse, she walked with the grace and composure that had become her trademark over the years. Her mind was clear now, and the weight that had once felt so heavy on her chest had begun to lift. She wasn't just walking away from Lena today. She was walking away from the illusion of family, from the betrayal, and from everything that had come to define their relationship. She knew this would be her last step in this chapter of her life. As she reached the entrance, the low growl of an engine echoed through the parking lot. Amanda didn't need to turn around to know what it was. A sleek, red Ferrari pulled up next to her, the polished body gleaming under the afternoon sun. The door swung open, and her assistant stepped out of the car with the kind of precision and confidence that only came from being part of Amanda's world. He didn't say a word as he walked around to open the passenger side for Amanda, but the message was clear. The luxury car, delivered just the day before, stood as a silent testament to Amanda's restored wealth. Lena and Rick, who had been standing near the entrance, froze when they saw the car. Their faces drained of color as they realized the truth. The wealth they had thought was gone, the wealth they had counted on to break Amanda, had come back with a vengeance. The Ferrari wasn't just a car. It was a declaration. Amanda wasn't bankrupt. She never had been. Lena's eyes widened, her hands shaking as she took in the sight before her. For a brief moment, she felt a flicker of panic, an instinctive realization that she had miscalculated everything. Rick, on the other hand, seethed with rage. His face twisted in fury as he turned on Lena, his voice rising. "Look what you've done," he shouted, his eyes blazing with anger. "You dragged me into this mess. You promised me that she was finished. And now look at this." Lena flinched under his words, but it wasn't the anger of her biological father that struck her the hardest. It was the crushing weight of her own failure, the realization that everything she had done to humiliate Amanda had backfired spectacularly. She had believed that once Amanda's assets were frozen, she could walk away with everything she wanted. But now, standing before the car and watching Amanda's assistant walk with such confidence, Lena realized how wrong she had been. Rick's furious rant continued, but Lena didn't hear it anymore. She could only focus on the Ferrari, the symbol of her mistakes, and the quiet voice in her head telling her it was all over. Desperately, Lena's resolve cracked. She rushed toward Amanda, her face contorted with guilt and fear. She dropped to her knees, her hands trembling as she clung to Amanda's leg, sobbing uncontrollably. "Mom," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "I was wrong. I'm so sorry. Please take me back. I know I messed up. Please. I don't want to lose you. Need you. Please don't leave me like this. I'll do anything." For a moment, there was a flicker of something in Amanda's eyes. A brief moment where the woman who had once raised Lena, who had loved her like a daughter, seemed to soften. But it was only for a moment. In an instant, the harsh reality of the situation came crashing back. Amanda looked down at Lena, her face unreadable. Her eyes were cold, unmoved by the desperate plea at her feet. She had heard these words before, hadn't she? The promises, the apologies, the tears. But this time it wasn't the same. This time Lena's actions had crossed a line, one that Amanda couldn't, and wouldn't, let her cross again. "You made your choice, Lena," Amanda said, her voice icy, steady and final. "You no longer exist in my world." The words landed like a sharp slap, and for a moment Lena's sobs stopped. She looked up at Amanda in shock, unable to process what had just been said. But Amanda didn't give her a second glance. She turned to her assistant and gave him a simple but firm order. "Revoke all of her financial access," Amanda said, her voice unwavering. "Blacklist both Lena and Rick from all my properties. Remove them from every system. Make sure they never have access to anything I've worked for again." Lena tried to speak, to beg for another chance, but Amanda was already walking away. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She had seen enough. The lesson had been learned. And for Lena it was too late. As Amanda and her assistant got into the Ferrari and drove away, Lena was left standing there in the parking lot, alone. The humiliation was complete. Her desperation echoed in the empty space between her and the car that now belonged to someone who had truly earned it. Days passed, and Amanda thought she had finally moved on. The house, though empty and quiet, no longer felt like a battleground. She had closed the door on the painful chapter that had been her relationship with Lena, but life, it seemed, wasn't quite ready to leave her alone. One late afternoon, as Amanda was sitting by the fireplace, the soft sound of a knock broke through the stillness of the room. She wasn't expecting anyone, but as she walked toward the door, her heart sank. She knew exactly who it was before she even looked through the peephole. Rick and Lena. Amanda opened the door, her expression neutral, but inside a storm was brewing. Lena stood there, her eyes red from crying, her face streaked with tears. Rick stood beside her, looking uncomfortable, but his presence wasn't enough to shield Lena from the situation she had created. "I know we've crossed a line," Rick said first, his voice low, almost apologetic. "But we're desperate, Amanda. Please. Lena's been through a lot. We've both realized." Lena cut him off, her voice choked with emotion. "I know what I've done, Mom," she sobbed, her knees hitting the ground as she dropped to the floor in front of Amanda. "I'm so sorry. Changed. I swear I won't make the same mistakes again. Please take me back. Need you. I was wrong. I see that now." Amanda looked down at Lena, her heart heavy with all the years of hope and trust she had placed in her. She had loved this girl unconditionally, had sacrificed so much to build a life for her. But now, all that was left was the broken shell of someone who had betrayed her in ways Amanda could never have imagined. Lena's sobs echoed through the room, her desperation palpable. She clung to Amanda's leg, her tears soaking the fabric of Amanda's dress. But Amanda remained still, unmoved. She didn't pull her in, didn't offer comfort. She kept her dignity, her poise, and most importantly, her resolve. "I've heard enough," Amanda said quietly, her voice calm and controlled. She couldn't let her emotions take over, not now. "You've already made your choices, Lena. And you've already shown me who you really are." Lena lifted her tear-streaked face, but Amanda didn't look at her. Instead, Amanda heard the sound of footsteps approaching from the driveway. She turned just in time to see a group of Lena's friends, walking up the front steps. Lena's eyes widened as the group approached, and she instantly straightened up, trying to wipe away the last of her tears. But it was too late. The damage had already been done, and they could see it written all over her face. They looked at her, then at Amanda, and then back at Lena, the mockery in their eyes becoming clear. "Lena, what happened?" one of the girls said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I thought you had everything. All that cash, the villa, the car. Where's it all gone now? Guess your mom isn't so rich after all." The others laughed lightly, their mockery ringing through the air. The tension in the room was thick, and Lena's face turned crimson with embarrassment. Her friends weren't here to console her. They were here to have a laugh at her expense. It was all so clear now. They never cared about her. They only cared about what she could give them. "I knew it," one of them sneered. "She was always talking about how rich she was, about all the things she could buy us. Looks like it was all just a show." Lena stood frozen, her eyes wide with shock, as her so-called friends tore her down in front of Amanda. Their laughter cut through the air, leaving Lena exposed, broken, and utterly humiliated. Amanda didn't flinch. She didn't move an inch. She simply watched, her heart heavy, but her voice steady as she finally spoke. "The most precious thing in this world isn't wealth," Amanda said slowly, her gaze locking with Lena's. "It's someone's heart. And you've already spent it all." The words were final. They were the last piece of Amanda's rejection, a statement that made it clear. There was no going back. Lena had taken everything Amanda had to offer and destroyed it with greed and manipulation. And now, standing in front of her friends, Lena had nothing left. No money, no dignity, and no love. Lena stood there, silent, as her friends walked away with their smirks, leaving her kneeling on the cold floor. And for the first time, Amanda felt no remorse. No regret. She had done what was right. She turned on her heel, walking away from the scene without looking back. It was over. There would be no more chances. No more lies. Lena's place in Amanda's life was gone, and the door to that chapter had closed for good. After everything that had happened, Amanda found herself at a crossroads. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of emotion, anger, and pain, but now, standing at the precipice of her new life, she realized she was finally free. Free from the lies. Free from the manipulation. And, most importantly, free from the toxic hold that Lena had once had over her life. Amanda decided to return to her company. She wasn't sure what to expect, whether she would be met with cold shoulders or hushed whispers behind her back. But when she walked through the doors of the office, she was greeted with something far different. Respect. Admiration. Her employees, many of whom had been with her for years, stood up from their desks when she entered the building. Some even clapped. There were smiles all around. The air was different now, lighter. Amanda realized that while she had been dealing with her personal battles, the people who truly valued her had never given up on her. She had a team that respected her not for her wealth or her position, but for who she was as a person. That realization warmed her more than any luxury ever could. But Amanda wasn't in the mood to celebrate. The grandeur of what had once been her life felt distant now, almost meaningless. She didn't need to show off or drown herself in material things anymore. What she needed, what she craved, was purpose. Clarity. The things that had been buried beneath the surface for so long. She didn't rush into anything. She took her time, re-establishing herself at the company, focusing on what really mattered. She reclaimed her role as CEO with a quiet confidence, not through force or power, but through her renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't interested in making money just for the sake of it. She wanted to build something meaningful, a legacy that wasn't defined by luxury, but by integrity and hard work. In the quiet moments of the evenings, Amanda rediscovered her hobbies, the simple joys that had once brought her peace but had been forgotten in the chaos of her past. She took long walks in the garden she had started years ago, finding solace in the routine of caring for her plants. She even started painting again, something she hadn't done in years. Her strokes on the canvas weren't perfect, but they didn't need to be. It was enough to simply create. One afternoon, as she was at a local charity event, Amanda met Samuel Pierce, a humble, kind man who ran a community health fund. He was modestly dressed, his presence understated but grounded. They struck up a conversation, talking about everything from business strategies to family history. It was the kind of conversation that didn't revolve around status or money, but just two people sharing their lives. What struck Amanda most about Samuel was how he treated her. Not like the wealthy woman everyone else saw, but as an equal. He didn't look at her with awe or interest in her money. He respected her for who she was, not for what she could give. That, she realized, was exactly what she had been missing all along. The kind of connection that was about more than just what you could take from someone. In the weeks that followed, Samuel and Amanda continued to meet for casual dinners, sometimes at small cafes or strolling through parks. They spoke about books, about dreams, about the small things in life that often got overlooked in the race for success. Amanda didn't know where it would go, whether it was just a friendship or something more. But for the first time in years, she felt content. She wasn't searching for validation. She wasn't chasing after something that didn't matter. She was simply living her life, finding joy in the little moments, in the relationships that were built on mutual respect and kindness. Her life had shifted in a way she never expected, but it had shifted for the better. She had learned that true peace didn't come from wealth or status. It came from knowing who you were, what you stood for, and the relationships that nourished you, not drained you. Amanda no longer feared what might be lost, because now she knew she had everything she truly needed. And with Samuel and the new life she was building, she realized that the future was full of possibilities, not defined by her past, but by the choices she made today. One afternoon, as Amanda sat in her office, the hum of the city outside barely penetrating her calm, she noticed a letter resting on her desk. The envelope was simple, no extravagant markings, no hint of the past that it carried. It was from Lena. For a moment, Amanda hesitated. The name on the envelope brought a rush of conflicting emotions: anger, disappointment, a touch of sadness. It had been weeks since Lena had left, and Amanda had worked hard to put the past behind her. But now the letter sat there, an unwelcome reminder of what once was. Amanda slowly opened the envelope, the paper inside crisp and clean. As she unfolded the letter, she could almost feel the weight of Lena's words pressing down on her. "Dear Mom, I know I have no right to call you that anymore, but I wanted to say something. I've spent a long time thinking about everything I did, and I've realized that the biggest mistake I made wasn't giving away your wealth. It was the way I treated you, the person who gave me everything. I see now that what I lost wasn't just money. I lost your love, your trust, and something far more precious. I'm sorry for everything I did to hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness, and I don't expect you to take me back, but I needed to say it. I've also enclosed everything you gave me. The villa, the Bentley, everything I took from you, I'm returning it. It was never mine to keep. I hope someday you can find it in yourself to understand that I do regret what I did. Not because of the wealth, but because of the damage I caused to the only person who ever really cared for me. Lena." Amanda sat still for a long moment after finishing the letter. Her fingers lingered on the paper, feeling the smooth texture of the ink, but there was no overwhelming surge of emotion. There was no anger or relief. She wasn't ready to soften, not yet. Not for Lena, not for the person who had taken so much from her. But there was something else. Something deeper, something peaceful that she hadn't expected to feel. She had lived through the storm, and now the calm was settling in. Lena's words, though filled with regret, could not undo the past. They couldn't erase the hurt, the betrayal. But they also didn't have to define Amanda's future. Lena had apologized, but Amanda had already moved forward. After a moment of quiet reflection, Amanda made her decision. She reached for her phone and called her assistant. "Can you do something for me?" she asked, her voice steady. "I'd like to anonymously sponsor Lena's vocational education. It's not out of obligation. I want her to stand on her own. She needs to find her own way now." Her assistant, accustomed to Amanda's calm resolve, didn't question her decision. "Of course, Ms. Dawson. I'll handle it." Amanda hung up the phone and leaned back in her chair, staring out the window at the city below. The sun was beginning to dip, casting a warm, golden light across the horizon. The world outside was still, peaceful. And Amanda realized that this was her victory. Not the money, not the company, not even the power she had once held. It was her ability to walk away from the past with strength and clarity. She walked out to her balcony, the cool breeze brushing against her skin as she watched the sun sink lower. For the first time in a long while, she felt completely at peace. No more fear, no more regrets. She whispered softly to herself, the words not directed at anyone but herself. Happiness doesn't come from owning people. It comes from knowing you have the strength to walk away and the heart to start again. As the sun set behind the horizon, Amanda knew she had done everything she could for Lena. But now it was time to live her own life. A life built on the foundation of integrity, strength, and the quiet peace of knowing that no matter what, she was enough. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Amanda's story. I know it's not an easy one, but sometimes it's the harshest moments in life that teach us the most. The lesson here: loyalty should never be about what we can get in return. True love and respect come when we give without expecting anything back, because the people who truly value us will stand by us, no matter what. So, what's your take on this story? Do you think Amanda made the right choice? Or would you have acted differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I really want to know what you think. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit like, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you never miss out on the next amazing story. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.